Imagine you wake up tomorrow and poof, your phone is gone. No Instagram, no TikTok, no just checking emails. You're forced to live without comparing your breakfast smoothie to a stranger's Lamborghini. Horrifying, right? You'd suddenly have to deal with your own thoughts instead of scrolling through someone else's highlight reel. And if that makes you uncomfortable, congratulations. You're already the type of person this book is about to call out. Because here's the truth. You are drowning in crap that doesn't matter. You're stressed about Karen from accounting's passive-aggressive email. You're still bitter that your ex is dating someone hotter, and you spend half your life trying to look successful instead of actually being successful. And you know what? Nobody cares. That's right, nobody. Not the barista, not your followers, not even your dog, who's just wondering why you smell like desperation and oat milk. Today we're talking about The Subtle Art of Not Giving a Fuck by Mark Manson. A book that doesn't just hand you a self-help smoothie with extra positivity sprinkles, but instead dumps a bucket of cold, uncomfortable reality over your head and says, drink that. Mark Manson, blogger turned best-selling author, built his career by telling people the stuff they don't want to hear, but desperately need to. He's not here to coddle you, hold your hand, or help you manifest a Lamborghini out of thin air. He's here to teach you the one skill that might actually save your sanity, deciding what's worth your limited mental energy and ruthlessly ignoring the rest. And before the self-help police get twitchy, let's state this clearly. This video falls under the Fair Use Act. It's for educational purposes only, and it's transformative. I'm not just parroting Manson's words, I'm confronting them, challenging them, dragging them into the messy arena of real life where most of you are too busy arguing on Facebook to notice you're unhappy. The book's core message is simple but vicious. You are not special. Life will always involve suffering, and if you don't learn to choose your struggles wisely, you'll waste your one shot on things that don't matter. And yes, that means most of what's stressing you out right now is your own darn fault. Welcome to Mindful Reads Hub. Let's get started. The power of not caring, how letting go gives you everything. You've been lied to. Somewhere between your parents telling you that you're special and Instagram convincing you that everyone else's life is perfect, you swallowed the belief that happiness is the reward for ticking off enough boxes. Job, partner, house, six-pack. The good life checklist. You thought the race was about getting there first, but the real trap is that there is no finish line. You keep running, not because you're winning, but because you're terrified to stop. And the worst part? The treadmill was never going anywhere in the first place. Mark Manson starts by dragging you into the life of Charles Bukowski, a man who achieved success not by believing in himself or hustling harder, but by fully accepting that he was a loser and writing from that place without shame. His tombstone literally says, "Don't try." That's not nihilism, it's freedom. The kind you get when you stop pretending to be the perfect Instagram-filtered version of yourself and instead operate from the messy, flawed human you actually are. Here's where the slap comes in. Most of your anxiety, misery, and constant "I'm not enough" narrative comes from giving too many fucks about things that don't matter. You think you're chasing happiness, but you're really just feeding a feedback loop from hell. Feeling bad about feeling bad, getting anxious about being anxious, being guilty about feeling guilty. Every time you scroll through someone else's highlight reel, your brain takes notes. Look, you're not there yet. Better keep running. That's why Manson flips the script. Stop giving a fuck about more and start giving a fuck about less. But here's the twist most people miss. Not caring doesn't mean being numb or indifferent. It means being brutally selective. You don't have unlimited energy, so every time you hand over your attention to something petty, like that passive-aggressive text or whether your dinner looked shareable, you're bankrupting yourself for when real problems hit. You can only care deeply about a few things, so choose them on purpose. Now let's torch the sacred cow of happiness itself. Manson drags in the Buddha, not the chill, statuesque Buddha you see in spa lobbies, but the guy who realized after years of extreme wealth and self-inflicted suffering that life is pain. Not sometimes, always. The rich suffer because they fear losing what they have. The poor suffer because they don't have it. You suffer if you're single, you suffer if you're married. You suffer when you get what you want because it stops being special, and you suffer when you don't because you feel incomplete. That's not pessimism, it's reality. Here's where the magic happens. Once you stop treating suffering like a glitch in the system and start seeing it as the system, you stop wasting energy fighting it. Problems never end, they just get upgraded. The poor guy worries about paying rent. The millionaire worries about lawsuits. The trick isn't to solve life, it's to pick problems you actually enjoy wrestling with. That's where happiness lives. Not in a life free of pain, but in pain you've chosen. And let's get personal for a second. Think about the last time you wanted something. Maybe to start a business, get shredded, or learn guitar. You didn't actually want the process. You wanted the image. You wanted the applause, the six-pack reveal, the Instagram caption. But the people who get those things, they're in love with the grind itself. The sore muscles, the 5 a.m. alarms, the endless repetition. The climb is the point. If you hate the climb, stop lying to yourself that you'll magically appear at the summit. So stop chasing a life where you'll never be uncomfortable. That life doesn't exist. Trade your endless list of petty irritations for a handful of meaningful struggles. Care deeply about them. Ignore the rest. And for the love of all things holy, stop thinking happiness is something you achieve. It's something you do in the middle of the mess, not after it's cleaned up. Key takeaway: happiness isn't earned by adding more. It's found by subtracting the meaningless and leaning into struggles worth your energy. Favorite quote: the desire for more positive experience is itself a negative experience. And, paradoxically, the acceptance of one's negative experience is itself a positive experience. The death of special: why being ordinary is your superpower. You've been told you're special your whole life. And that's the problem. Somewhere between your teacher putting a gold star on your coloring sheet for staying inside the lines and your mom telling you that you could be anything you set your mind to, you were sold the myth that the world owed you a front row seat to greatness. And here you are, decades later, still waiting for the curtain to rise. Spoiler alert, there's no show. The audience left years ago. Mark Manson's take is blunt. You're not exceptional. And neither am I, and that's the most freeing thing you'll ever hear. We live in a culture that has made average sound like a diagnosis. Everyone wants to be extraordinary, but if everyone were extraordinary, then by definition, nobody would be. This is basic math. But when it's your ego on the chopping block, suddenly math feels unfair. The self-esteem movement of the 70s and 80s tried to cure the world by telling kids they were all unique snowflakes destined for greatness. What we got instead was a generation of Jimmies, people with delusional self-confidence, allergic to accountability, and addicted to the high of feeling important without ever doing anything important. These are the folks who love the idea of impact, but somehow never manage to produce any. They're in love with the Instagram bio version of themselves, not the bloody, boring, grind-it-out reality it takes to get there. Here's the reality check. Self-worth isn't about how good you feel about your strengths. It's about how honest you are about your weaknesses. The person who can say, yeah, I screw up with money, or I'm too quick to judge people without flinching. That's someone with real self-respect. The rest of us are just shoving our flaws under the rug and calling it confidence. And that leads straight into the value of suffering. If you want a life that matters, you don't get to skip the pain. You choose it. You don't have to be exceptional to live a meaningful life, but you do have to pick something worth bleeding for. This is where most people tap out. They want the rewards without the grind. They want the six-figure business, but not the 60-hour weeks. The soulmate without the awkward conversations and emotional nakedness. The purpose without the uncomfortable self-interrogation it takes to find it. Suffering has value because it's the only currency life deals in that can't be faked. You can lie about your success, you can Photoshop your vacation photos, you can even gaslight yourself into thinking you're happy, but you can't fake the pain you endure for something you care about. It's the only honest receipt you'll ever get that you're on the right path. The moment you stop chasing the illusion of being special and start building a life around the right struggles, the pressure lifts. You stop measuring yourself against billionaires, influencers, or your old college roommate who found herself in Bali. You start measuring yourself against the person you were yesterday, and suddenly you're in a game you can actually win. So stop hoarding your energy for some fantasy moment when the world finally recognizes your brilliance. Pick a hill worth dying on and then climb it like hell, not because it will make you famous, but because it will make you you. The truth is, most of us will be forgotten within a couple generations, and that's not depressing. It's permission to focus on what actually matters now. Ordinary isn't a consolation prize. It's the default setting, and it's the only place you get to decide whether the life you live is worth the pain it takes to live it. Key takeaway: you don't have to be exceptional to matter. Your life's value isn't measured by how special you are, but by whether the suffering you choose is worth enduring. Favorite quote: you are not special, and if you think you are, you're probably worse off than most. The choice that shapes everything. Owning your life, even the ugly parts. Here's the truth you've been dodging. You are responsible for everything in your life, even the things that weren't your fault. That's not motivational poster talk. That's the uncomfortable reality that makes most people want to slam their laptop shut and go scroll TikTok instead. Because if you accept that, you don't get to hide behind the excuse that life screwed you over. You have to admit you've been the one steering your ship straight into icebergs. Manson's point is brutal but simple. Every moment is a choice. Not a Hallmark card choose happiness nonsense, but an ugly, in the trenches choice about what you're going to focus on, what you'll accept, and how you'll respond to the chaos that life drops on your doorstep. You can't control the storm, but you control the damn wheel. The alternative? You hand the wheel to someone else and then act surprised when you hate where you end up. And here's the twist. Responsibility and fault are not the same thing. Your parents getting divorced wasn't your fault, but how you handle the wreckage, the beliefs you adopt, and the way you let it shape your relationships, that's on you. Someone rear-ends you at a stoplight, not your fault, but whether you spend the rest of the day raging about it or calmly swapping insurance info, that's yours to own. People waste decades waiting for life to fix the mess it handed them, when in reality, life's already moved on and you're the one still standing in the debris. The kicker? Even when you think you're making no choice, you're making a choice. Staying in a job you hate is a choice. Keeping toxic friends is a choice. Not deciding is just deciding to keep things exactly as they are, and then pretending you're the victim of circumstances. That's the mental equivalent of refusing to drive and then blaming the car for not getting anywhere. But here's where it gets even uglier. You are wrong. About almost everything. Your beliefs, your memories, your political opinions, your sense of what's fair, they're all flawed, biased, and incomplete. And if you're already feeling defensive listening to that, congratulations, you just proved the point. Humans crave certainty, but that craving is a trap. Certainty shuts the door on growth. It's the mental straitjacket that keeps you arguing with strangers on the internet instead of questioning whether you might be the one talking nonsense. The smart play isn't to be right, it's to be less wrong over time. That means treating your beliefs like a beta version of an app. They're good enough for now, but they need constant updates. The moment you start clinging to them like gospel truth, you stop learning. And if you've stopped learning, you've stopped living. You're just repeating yourself louder every year until nobody's listening. This is why Manson's kill yourself chapter header, don't panic, it's metaphorical, hits hard. You have to kill off the version of yourself that's addicted to certainty. You have to dismantle the comfortable little mental kingdom you've built, brick by brick, and accept that the person you are today is not the final product. That's the only way you'll stop defending your ego and start actually improving your life. So, what's the move? Accept radical responsibility for everything in your life, especially the parts you didn't choose, and then hold your beliefs lightly. Like you're carrying a cup of coffee across a crowded room, firm enough not to spill, loose enough to adjust when someone bumps into you. Stop pretending you'll have it all figured out one day. You won't, but you can get better at being less wrong, and that's more than most people will ever manage. Key takeaway: your life is the sum of your choices, even the ones you didn't consciously make. Own them all, drop the obsession with being right, and focus on being less wrong over time. Favorite quote, "You're wrong about everything, but so am I. The goal is to be a little less wrong each day." Fail hard, fail forward, the back door to success. Everyone wants to win. Nobody wants to be the idiot who trips over their own feet in front of a crowd. And yet, if you pay attention to literally every meaningful success story, the people you admire are basically professional idiots, people who have failed more times than you've even tried. The real difference? They didn't turn their screw-ups into permanent excuses. They used them like gym weights, stacking more and more until they were strong enough to lift the thing you call impossible. Manson's point here is not subtle. Success is built on failure. And not the neat PR packaged, "I had a minor setback, but now I'm a millionaire" kind of failure. We're talking about repeated faceplants, public embarrassments, and moments where quitting looks like the only rational move. The uncomfortable truth is, you can't tiptoe your way to mastery. You have to rack up enough losses to understand the game. And most people are so allergic to the feeling of losing that they never even get on the field. The backward law from earlier chapters shows up again here. Just like chasing happiness makes you miserable, avoiding failure makes you weak. You get good at what you practice, so if you spend your life practicing avoidance, ducking hard conversations, steering away from challenges, shelving your dreams until you feel ready, then you become excellent at exactly one thing: staying small. And here's where the mindset from the "you're wrong" conversation comes back in. Failure is not proof that you're a fraud. It's proof that you tested reality. When you take a swing and miss, you gain information. You learn what doesn't work, what you need to improve, and where you overestimated yourself. That's the only data that actually moves you forward. But if you refuse to swing until you're sure you'll hit, you'll die with a perfect batting average of 0. Here's the kicker: waiting until you're motivated or ready is the worst plan ever. Manson calls it the do something principle. Action isn't the result of motivation. Action creates motivation. Sitting on your couch waiting for inspiration to strike is like standing in your driveway waiting for your car to start itself. Take a step, any step, and momentum builds. Even a bad step is progress because you can adjust. No step? You're just daydreaming with nicer stationery. The failures you fear most are usually the ones that would teach you the fastest. Want to write a book? Publish something awful online and let people tear it apart. You'll learn more from that than a year of private scribbling. Want to start a business? Launch something that barely works and watch where it breaks. Every no you collect is training for the yes that matters. But if you treat no like a verdict instead of a stepping stone, you've already lost. And let's get personal here. You failed before, plenty of times. You failed to get the girl or boy you wanted. You failed the exam. You failed to stick to the gym routine, but you didn't die. In fact, you might have even upgraded your life because of it. Different girl, different career, better health years later. The pain faded, and what was left was whatever lesson you decided to take. That's what happens every single time if you stop wallowing long enough to see it. So the real skill isn't avoiding failure, it's mining it. You fail, you extract the lesson, you try again with a slightly better approach. Repeat that enough and suddenly you look lucky to everyone else. But you'll know the truth. You just failed faster than they were willing to. Key takeaway: every success you want sits on a mountain of failures. Stop waiting to feel ready. Start stacking failed attempts because each one is a step toward the version of you who actually knows how to win. Favorite quote: if someone is better than you at something, it's likely because they have failed at it more than you have. The power of no. How boundaries build the life you actually want. Most people's lives are a cluttered garage, full of half-finished projects, impulse buys they regret, and just in case junk they'll never actually use. And the reason is simple: they say yes to everything. Yes to every invite, every quick favor, every shiny opportunity that shows up in their inbox. And then they wonder why they have no time, no focus, and no real progress in anything that matters. You are not drowning because there's too little time. You are drowning because you've stuffed your life with things that don't belong there. Manson's point is surgical. If you want a meaningful life, you have to start cutting. Saying no isn't selfish, it's the highest form of self-respect. Every yes you give is a withdrawal from your limited bank of time, energy, and attention. And here's the kicker. Most of you are spending that currency on stuff you don't even care about, just to avoid the temporary discomfort of disappointing someone. You're bankrupting your future so you can avoid a 3-second awkward moment in the present. Here's the ugly truth. Commitment is a trade-off. When you say yes to something, you are automatically saying no to everything else in that space. But because most people don't consciously make those trades, they end up committed to nothing, scattered across dozens of half-hearted maybes that never go anywhere. The people you admire, they've built their lives around a handful of hell yes commitments, and they ruthlessly decline everything else. This is where the leftovers from the failure conversation come in. Real commitment feels like a cage. And that's the point. When you lock yourself into something worth doing, you're forcing yourself to burn the escape routes that would let you bail when it gets hard. If you keep every door open, you'll always wander through the one that's easiest, and that's almost never the one that leads to the life you want. And here's the part that will make some people squirm. Sometimes saying no means killing a good option so you can give your full weight to a great one. That's why the most successful people you know aren't the busiest. They're the most focused. They've learned the discipline of disappointment. They will let other people down so they don't let themselves down. They will miss out on things that are pretty cool so they can do the one thing that's right. But let's get brutally real. Saying no is a skill you build through pain. The first few times you do it, you'll feel like you're committing social murder. People might guilt you, push back, even question your loyalty. That's fine. Boundaries aren't meant to make everyone comfortable. They're meant to protect the few things you've decided matter more than other people's temporary approval. The irony? The more you practice it, the more respect you gain. Not from the people who wanted to use you, they'll vanish, but from the ones who actually value you for who you are, not for what they can get out of you. And suddenly, you're surrounded by better people, working on better things, living a better life. All because you learned that no is not a rejection of people, it's a commitment to your priorities. If you want your life to change, you don't need more yes, you need fewer, and you need them to be earned. Every yes you give should be so intentional that you feel the weight of everything else you've just declined. And if you can't do that, then you're just another overcommitted, underfulfilled person who confuses being busy with being important. Key takeaway. Every yes is a trade-off, and your life is shaped far more by what you decline than what you accept. Guard your yes like your life depends on it, because it does. Favorite quote, the more something threatens your identity, the more you should probably engage with it. The final fuck, making peace with the end. Here's the truth you've been hiding from your whole life. You're going to die. And no, not in some poetic dust in the wind way. One day your heart will stop, your lungs will quit, and the world will keep turning like you were never here. People will go to work, complain about traffic, and maybe remember you once in a while until even that fades. You think that's depressing? It's not. It's the most liberating truth you'll ever hear if you stop being scared of it. The problem is, you've built your life like you're immortal. You waste days like they're free samples. You put off dreams like they're items in an online cart you can check out later. And you hold grudges like you've got eternity to fix things. You don't. Your clock is ticking right now. And you have no clue when it hits zero. You could have 50 years or 5 minutes, but either way, the supply is shrinking. Manson's argument is simple. Accepting your death is the only way to truly live. Most people do the opposite. They try to avoid the thought entirely, distracting themselves with entertainment, shallow goals, and fake urgency over nonsense that won't matter in a week, let alone after they're gone. You scroll through social media like that's going to be your legacy. You argue about politics online like your snarky comment is going to outlive the species. Newsflash, none of it matters when you're gone. And here's where it gets ugly. The fear of death is actually a fear of wasted life. It's the quiet, gnawing panic that you've been here this whole time and still haven't done the things you said you would. That's why the subject makes people uncomfortable. Death isn't stealing from you. You've been giving your time away willingly, to the wrong things, to the wrong people. Every time you said yes when you meant no. Every time you put off something meaningful because it wasn't convenient. The point isn't to do everything before you die. That's just another hustle culture scam dressed up as wisdom. You don't need to climb Everest or write a bestseller to make your life count. You just need to stop treating your days like they're cheap. Pick what actually matters and bleed for it while you still can. Cut the rest without apology. Because at the end, the only real regret isn't what you didn't get to do. It's all the time you burned on things that didn't matter in the first place. And here's the paradox. Once you accept that you're going to die, you stop living like you're trying to impress people who will also die. You quit the performance and start being real. You stop obsessing over status games and start investing in actual connection. You stop playing not to lose and start playing like you've got nothing to protect, because you don't. Everything you're clinging to will be gone one day. Might as well spend it before it expires. People hear this and think, yeah, but I'm young, I've got time. Sure, and so did the people who died in car accidents last night. So did the 32-year-old who got a diagnosis she didn't see coming. So did the guy who thought he was just having indigestion. The clock is already running, and pretending you can't hear it doesn't stop the countdown. You want peace? Stop trying to outrun death. You won't win. Instead, live in a way that makes the end irrelevant. Pack your life so full of what matters to you that when your number's called, you can say, alright, I'm good. Death isn't the enemy. Wasting your life is. Key takeaway. Accepting death isn't morbid. It's the clearest path to living on your own terms. Stop pretending you have time. Choose what matters and give it everything now, because later isn't guaranteed. Favorite quote, you're going to die someday. I know that you know that, but you don't really know it. Conclusion. So here we are. 10 brutal truths, 1 clear reality. Your life is yours to own and nobody's coming to save you. You've been handed the manual, but it's not a neat step-by-step checklist. It's a sledgehammer. Smash the illusions, kill the fake goals, bleed for what matters, and cut the rest. You don't need permission. You don't need certainty. You just need to stop waiting for a better time that doesn't exist. If anything you heard today pissed you off, good. That means it hit the part of you that knows it's true. Sit with it, then do something about it. Because if you go back to the same habits, the same excuses, the same comfortable misery after this, then you didn't just waste this video, you're wasting your life. And listen, this was only a fraction of what's in the subtle art of not giving a fuck. If you think you've got the message from a summary, you don't. The book will hit you harder, deeper, and in ways I can't fit here without reading the whole damn thing. So go buy it, mark it up, fight with it, and actually use it. This is the part where most people just click away. Don't be most people. Subscribe, stick around, and keep showing up for the conversations that make you uncomfortable. Because that's where the change happens. Your time is running out. Spend it like it matters.